Hello, I am Lisa May Young and welcome to Holding the Space. Today I'm being joined by Heather Stuart of Fife Cultural Trust. Hello Heather, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's lovely to speak to you. So tell us all about Heather.
Oh, well, Heather's just turned 50, so there's an increasing amount of Heather to tell about.
Happy belated birthday.
Yes, well, not perhaps the best timing. I think I had a year of, I'm not going to call them celebrations, I would say commemorations planned, and I think I managed the first one, which was a trip to Rome with some of my friends, which was amazing. But other than that, no, that's been it. So I'm going to have to just pretend I'm 50 for another year, which is better than 51 probably.
You've got to do what you've got to do.
That's exactly right. If I hold on for 60, who knows what's around the corner.
Yeah, definitely. And with lockdown easing somewhat, there hopefully will be a chance for a bit more of a celebration.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think I really started to feel that in the run-up to last Wednesday, when we opened the doors to some of our libraries again, and I've got a new puppy. Sorry, can you hear that in the background? You can edit all that out, hopefully.
No, not at all.
I hope she'll settle down. But
what's the puppy's name?
She's called Bailey. She's 9 weeks. I've got another two. Ash, who I rescued, who's a bit visually impaired, and Carly, who we got as a puppy as well, but she's just turned 1. But they can be a bit noisy, sorry.
No, don't worry about that. Always welcome pets.
That's good. It's good to know. Yeah, so in the build-up to last Wednesday, just the positive feedback. Like we engaged with customers and they were just so excited about coming back. You know, we got over 3,500 people, I think it was, responding to our survey about what they wanted to see in the libraries. We got about 1,400 orders for our Connect and Collect, as we were calling it. And people just seem to get really excited about this mixed bag of books, you know, a bit like the book club idea, you know, where you're going to read something that you'd never picked for yourself based on the genre. So, yeah, no doubt we'll not get it right all the time for people. It's such a personal thing, but it was just such a positive response. I think for me that just really felt like a turning point, you know. It's an oft said phrase that we're not going back to what was normal, and I don't like that whole new normal, but what's for sure is it is going to be very different. But great to know that our customer loyalty and our staff's commitment and passion for what they do remain unchanged, and I just think that gave everybody a massive lift over what had been a really difficult period.
I think when all of us started working from home and shut the doors to the library, we had at that point no idea how long that would be for. The amount of time I spent in galleries. I mean, I should just book a table. But it's the sort of place you go to. I mean, I've gone down early in the morning to get some writing done, and there's people queuing outside the door waiting to go in.
Right?
Yeah, On Fife has created this place where it's not just a library, it's a community centre in a lot of ways. There's a lot of support there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, in all fairness, I think that you could say that about any library, whether it's small and solely a library service that is providing, or whether it's up to like our big flagships, our big integrated facilities like Kirkcaldy or Dunfermline galleries. But the fact remains that in a community, it is that place that draws people in. It's a safe space. It's a creative space. It's a supportive space, and the relationships that our staff have with our customers are second to none. We got the team got handmade thank you cards from some children when they opened the doors for the Connect and Collect last Wednesday.
That must have been so much
really
for them.
Emotional. Yeah, definitely. I can see the big challenge for them because there's such huge demand. It's going to be kind of keeping the customers moving through so they feel like they've had that engagement again, but we're not backing up. But booking the slots will help with that. But yeah, I mean, it's what makes it all so special. I think it's epitomised in libraries, but I would say that commitment, that passion, that engagement with our customers is right across our business. But yeah, so I mean, a lockdown, it has been difficult. It was very sudden. There are some huge challenges about it. It was very difficult making the decisions that led up to what we closed down. It's been really challenging, things that are invisible to people, but really resource intensive, like water testing, you know, sounding out your building again, make sure that all your health and safety is in place for COVID, but generally for the building. making sure staff feel comfortable. I mean, I think a big thing about return to work for everybody, because we're all human beings at the end of the day, it's just that psychological anxiety, isn't it, about coming back into work after such a long period away, and the physical environment's been so different. You can't bring all your children and your dogs with you. Well, not every day. I tell you what I do love though. What I do love though about the things that have come out of lockdown are the real sense of community generally. The huge engagement that we've had with our staff and from our staff, and the use of Zoom, and I've had these weekly coffee and chat things that have just been brilliant. But that whole thing about seeing into each other's lives and just getting that real feel of somebody as a person, we all like to think that we do that, and it's really important to me as a leader. But there's nothing like that whole, somebody's child gets up on their lap, and I've noticed people start saying, oh, there's so and so, they know the names of the kids, the husband, the wife, the partner, do you know?
Yeah, I think it's been so important. I know from my work point of view, having that coffee once a day where you're actually seeing people and seeing their faces, and I think you realise when you're working from home how much you actually spent time at work and how important those relationships were. But when you're talking about the community, lockdown really for me emphasised how lucky we are in the Fife community, because people they're so kind. They're so helpful. People are asking for help for their business. They're sharing business. It was something pretty special.
Absolutely, and sort of out with work, Rotary is a big part of my life. So sort of just quite a lot of volunteering around things like getting food to the food bank, going and collecting it from Ivan Woods up at Ballingray and getting that down, and just really kind of things that are just really small things but make a huge difference. I think just phoning people up to see how they are. I mean, I'm talking about that. We've all been doing that, but that was a massive, I think, thing for our staff, that on Fife Cares, where they were literally phoning up. Maybe some of our more vulnerable customers, maybe some of our older customers. People have just loved it. I mean, the feedback's been phenomenal. It was a good thing to do, and it was a natural thing in lots of ways for us to do, but the feedback's been disproportionately positive. It's obviously just touched such a chord with people that we cared enough to do it, which of course we do. But there were stories about, that was sometimes the only person that the person at the other end of the phone was speaking to, apart from thanks for my groceries or some kind of through the window chat. At points in lockdown, that was the only point of kind of like human contact on the phone. So I love that too.
Yeah. And they would normally have that contact perhaps when they went into the library for a cup of coffee.
Exactly, and that's the whole, to your point about that's such a big part of the community. I think culture is though. I think it's about culture, because it's about quality of life, well-being, how we actually want to go about and live our lives, the kind of experiences. It's all about experiences, the kind of experiences that people want to have, and that's why it's such a huge part of any community. That whole kind of access to that could be libraries, could be galleries, could be museums. It could just be opportunities to come together and have a shared experience. And that's the big thing that theatre brings, I suppose, or normally brings, is that real shared experience of something. It's not the same sitting on your couch with your popcorn watching the box office or what on Sky, or whatever is the thing that you do. It's just a whole different thing.
I love the on-Fife theatres. I absolutely adore the Dancers Live theatre. It's beautiful. And I think there's something very special about that moment just when the curtains open and you don't know kind of what's going to happen. But on Fife, your team's worked really hard on the on Fife Film Club, where people are collectively watching a film and then speaking about it online, and it's just such simple common sense ideas.
Yeah, we've done it with the books, we've done it with the films, but we absolutely recognise that the added value bit is doing it together. A shared experience, a perspective you would never have come up with yourself. I mean, if we only ever spoke to ourselves, we'd never fall out with anybody, would we? But we'd never, because we're always right, but we'd never learn anything, and I mean, I genuinely believe, and this is definitely the case for me, that I learn something every single day. I put a lot into making sure that I'm getting opportunities to do that, because it's really important to me. But live your life in an open way with these shared experiences, you learn all of the time, But I mean, you're right, Adam Smith. I mean, I've been trotting up those in that door and up those steps since I was able to walk. It's a very special and magical place anyway. But I think, like you and like me, it holds a really special place in people's hearts. I mean, I could say that about all of our venues, and it would be true. I think we all have a particular connection with those where we grew up, like Temple Hall Library for me, because that was where I went in after school to get my books. Do you know? You've heard Val McDermott talk about her experience of going into the Kirkcaldy Central Library, and that's what people remember. It's literally the making of them. Do you know? So the making of us, you know, Jack Vetriano often tells a story about, doesn't he, going into Kirkcaldy galleries as well, in terms of that being the whole thing that inspired him, but not just inspired him. I think when he was originally painting, you know, as Ben Hogan, he, you know, as everybody does, had a bit of a crisis of confidence. So it didn't just inspire him to get started, it inspired him to keep going. It sparked something really quite special. And that, for me, is what culture's about, what creativity is about, those whole life-transforming experiences. That's what I think we're in the business of. What I always say, and what we're talking about a lot just now, is our job is about opening doors to inspiration. And it doesn't matter whether those are physical doors or digital doors. It's about offering those experiences to people in a way that they feel that they're as much for them as they are for the next person. Which is the big difference in leading an organisation like on Fife as opposed to running a commercial theatre. That's the fundamental difference. And to be from here and to have loved all of these things all of my life, to come back to where I'm from and to be leading an organisation that delivers these things that are so special to the communities where I grew up, it's a really special thing. It's an absolute privilege. Privilege.
It sounds, the way you're speaking about it, like it's a bit of a gift.
Oh, I mean,
it
is. It's the biggest. It's a fantastic gift. It's a life gift. Being able to kind of continue to learn, continue to kind of develop my career, you know, great. But in lots of ways, this was a life choice for me coming back, getting the opportunity to do this job, and you know, to just to kind of live where I work and work where I live, and to be involved in what I'm passionate about. I mean, compared to most of my kind of hugely creative team, I'm probably the kind of the least creative, faceless bureaucrat. But you know, we all have a contribution to make, and I'm kind of hoping that I'm just going to absorb that creativity by osmosis, just being around them all their talent all of the time.
I mean, I can tell you about, you know, my experiences of you. You've been so welcoming to creatives. You remember being up with Cara from Lover Langton about International Women's Day, and you giving us that chance to sit on the stage and chew the fat about women in media. There were so many people there. It was such an amazing day filled with ideas, and you and your team had cultivated a little bit of magic up at Rufus Halls. It was something else.
And the team are great for doing that kind of thing, and I love to play any role in that. International Women's Day, it's a really interesting thing, because essentially what we're doing is just utilising our own resources, our skills, our knowledge, our experience. People are probably sick to the back teeth of hearing me wax lyrical about Jenny Lee, because she's such a big hero of mine, which is probably what I was speaking about that day. But so I mean, I agree. You know, the thing, I know a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't, is that, you know, Fife is generally a really creative place. It's like, it's something like the 4th largest number of creative organisations and individuals in Scotland. There's over 600 creative businesses, and one of the really big great things coming out of lockdown was we've always done our best to support those businesses and individuals, which is what you're talking about, and create these experiences. But during lockdown, we created a whole digital platform for doing various things, including our support for the Creating Fife network. What an amazing network that is. Do you know, I love the fact you can just pop in and, like, you know, Rab Noakes is kind of waxing lyrical about something, or do you know, I mean, just so many amazing people, you know, people whose names are not known and might never be known, but they're having, you know, just a whale of a time doing what they love. And you know, it's just great to see everybody just, and that's it, they're all kind of driven by creativity, you know.
I mean, I went to the last Creative Conversation chat, and that was great fun.
Cute, that sort of things would be used. People love it,
and it is such a, you know, an open forum, because you do get the chance to, because I think in some ways creativity can be poo-pooed by some people, you know what I mean, and it is a chance to flourish.
It absolutely is. I mean, and you know, you got to be open to it wherever it crops up. I mean, I can tell the story. It's not really my story to tell, but I can tell the story because Rachel James told it a few times now about Chanix Millinery. about her, she makes the hats. So I met her on a train about 10 o'clock one night. She had been drinking Prosecco. I was still drinking mine on the train, I'm embarrassed to say. And it was. So it can't have been 10 o'clock at night. It must have been well before 9.
Oh, of course it was, Heather. Of course it was.
And this beautiful girl came on with this amazing hat, absolutely massive. And the only seat was really opposite me. And she sat down and I had to ask her. So, 30 seconds later, I'm trying it on. We're having a chat. She works in the hospice for Chaz at Kinross. She makes these hats in her bedroom. And I was like, do you know what are you? Oh, I wish I could do it full time. I wish I could do this. Anyway, to cut a long story short, of which I played a tiny part, by the way, and this is not about me, put her in touch with the team, like Gillian Parsons, the whole creative team. She has now got this thriving business. In fact, I think just within the last couple of weeks I saw on Facebook, she's taken on actual shop space now for the first time ever. She gave up her job as a hospice nurse. She started to do it full time out the bedroom. Then she kind of got, it's just, all it takes, I think, sometimes is for somebody to recognise your talent and just give you that coaching boost about, well, why can you not do that? If this is what you do and you're as amazing at it, why not? Let's see what we can do, Then she started to get grants and she's out there all the time. And the other thing I love about Rachel is she's such a shining example then for anybody. I don't just mean women, I mean anybody who's thinking, should I not? And okay, it doesn't work every time for everybody. I don't know about you, but I have never heard anybody who I would deem to be the most successful people in the world get up and say that the first time they tried to do anything that took them on the journey that they've been on, they got it right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even it was Edison, wasn't it, with the kind of light bulb? I think I can't even remember how many.
It was 200 and something. Yeah, aye.
I do think sometimes people forget that. So sometimes you got to put yourself out there, but you've got to keep your expectations. You've got to be committed, and that's the other thing I really admire about creatives. Think about people out there who, are really struggling to make ends meet often, and that's a big challenge about trying to support this sector and these people, from their kitchen tables or their small offices or whatever. So I think it's brilliant to have all of that in Fife and incumbent on everybody, but particularly us as the biggest cultural organisation to do what we can to make sure that's something that we can all benefit from, forever, really.
Yeah, I've got a column in the Fife Heaty Press every week, every couple of weeks about podcasting.
Yeah,
and this week I'm talking about the arts and the struggle that the arts have had. One of the points I make was that when you open the curtains, you're witnessing someone that's worked for weeks, months, decades, sometimes on a piece of work. So
that's exactly right.
It's pretty amazing thing to see.
I know. Absolutely is. And we talked about Jack just as an example and something else, but there's another thing. That retrospective that we were going to have this year that we've now moved into next year, that's the first time. Like, think about how successful he is. That's the first time, and okay, with great encouragement from us, that he has agreed to show basically the works before he became what we now understand to be the successful artist that Jack Vetri. And it's very vulnerable. Yeah. Although I know he's going to take great delight in putting up the copy of the letter where he got kind of told he wasn't good enough for art college, and I get that, and that's probably a big part of you wait for your moment, don't you?
Yeah.
and you hope every creative gets that moment, I think, when you've had a journey like that. But you're right, and what is life about without that creativity? But I don't think creativity is just about arts and culture. I think creativity is about personal state, isn't it? It's about being open to ideas and inspiration and not discounting them so that the next person picks that idea up instead, having the confidence that maybe that's something you can do. You can do something with that you have the skills or the wherewithal to do it. And I think so to me, things like creativity in schools, but in the widest sense, a bit like entrepreneurialism, just that kind of whole mindset that's going to make you really ambitious for yourself, in life and what you do with your life.
Yeah, and trusting your voice and trusting your expression of that, and what you have is worth seeing. And whether that's art, whether that's writing, whether that's theatre production, whether it's sculpture.
Yeah, but that whole thing about it is one of the things that I personally feel really kind of passionate about, is that whole thing about we've got ourselves as human beings into this whole really, about everything that we experience or think about, we immediately are comparing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I just think there's nothing more unhealthy, and it's the same for adults as it is for children, nothing more unhealthy than comparing, because, you know, we are what we were given, do you know?
Yeah,
so what's
absolutely
right for us isn't going to be right for other people, and vice versa. And I just feel so many people go through life, don't they, feeling that they're just not enough, good enough, not thin enough, not rich enough, not
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you know. And I just think, gosh, you know, think of all that potential if that mindset was much more about what can I do? Or
Mm-hmm.
I can do that is probably the better way to say it. I can do that.
Yeah.
And who helps you do that? That's why we all remember these people in our lives, isn't it? Who just kind of were the ones that said, "Oh yeah, you can do
Give
that.
it, yeah, give it a
not?
go.
Give it a go. What you got to lose?" Yeah.
Tell us about the Scottish Government's new National Partnership for Culture,
Oh
which
yes.
which you've been invited to be part of, which is
Yeah.
amazing news.
Well, it's great for me. I mean, I mean, people see me in a Fife context, and I think forget that you've kind of done other things. The beauty for me of doing that is that I headed up the cultural division for Scotland for quite a while, but then wanted to come back to, you know, being a bit more hands-on, grassroots, that kind of thing. To be able to take that experience of understanding how government works, how Parliament works, how you work with ministers, cabinet secretaries and things, and that sort of government system, with all of what I know, you know, people is really important to people out there, is great. I was involved all the way through. The job of it really is to take forward the cultural strategy for Scotland. It's the first cultural strategy, I mean, almost in a generation for Scotland. So it's really exciting. And I think one of the tricky things is that's kind of passed people by a little bit, because like lots of things, momentum got lost a bit with lockdown. And so I'm on there with just like really kind of like amazing people. Rab's on it, for example. We've got people who are in kind of Gaelic publishing, people who are performers. It's chaired by Joanna Baker, who used to be the managing director of the Edinburgh International Festival. Yeah, they're just a bit like you say, you know, it would be easy to be kind of completely in awe, really, of who you're sitting around the virtual table with, and I am, really, because I am just a wee lassie from Kirkcaldy. I talk a big game, and but no, it's great, and what's really great is that we're going to recognise the fact that COVID's had an impact on the sector, but only as the context for what's still very relevant about the strategy. So the kind of the vision for the strategy, which I think really still stands, is you know, Scotland is a place where culture is valued, protected and nurtured. It's kind of what we're talking about. Culture's woven through everyday life, shapes and is shaped by society, and its transformative potential is experienced by everyone. So it really, for me, to be part of making that happen, Scotland's rich cultural heritage and creativity of today is inspired by people and place, enlivens every community and is celebrated around the world. And then there are kind of three big areas of focus. One's about strengthening culture so that it basically flourishes and continues to evolve for all the reasons that we've talked about. Transforming through culture so that it does more consistently become, I suppose, at the centre of things. And a really exciting development around that is going to be, you know, how often like the Scottish Government's had these champions, you know, they had like not Andy Murray the tennis player, but years ago when I worked in government, they had Dr. Andy Murray, who was the physical activity champion. He was always running through a desert somewhere, is what I remember. I'm not going to be doing that, just for clarity, in case I raise expectations. But that whole kind of, so basically to champion that, because one of the big frustrations I think of generally for people in culture is that, how do you join that up? We've been talking a long time about, you know, preventative measures, the huge difference that culture can make health and well-being, so that you get people early experiencing things like our cultural prescriptions, where you've got people who've been like chronically agoraphobic, have never been out the house for years and years, suddenly getting themselves on public transport and going to a drama class or a pottery class, or that's the power of it. So that bit, making that happen more consistently, making sure government policy making and budgeting reflects that opportunity, and then empowering through culture. So it's celebrated again as being very much a part of what makes us, I guess. So it's great to be doing that at a national level, at that macro level, as well as doing what I have the great privilege of doing every day locally. So yeah, I'm a bit overexcited, but no, I'm
understandably,
I'm just loving it. Well, I love what I do, you know, and I love the people that I work with. I love that everybody's a bit overexcitable where I work, especially about a good creative idea. Yeah.
But I mean, because if you think about it, you're history making at the moment, because you're taking part in the decisions and helping put the funding in place and helping put the policy in place that are going to encourage a new generation of creative.
Thanks. I was feeling the weight of it already, but I'm really feeling quite. I kind of felt myself get lower in my chair there. Oh my goodness, a generation is dependent upon me. But no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's probably one of my frustrations, is that if I get what people might, if it suited them, to think was evangelical about it, they're going to say, oh, well, you would say that, because that's what you do for a living or whatever. People don't do this for a living because there are other jobs out there. They do it for a living because we've all got to work to live in some way.
Yeah.
But to do this and to know you're making that kind of difference and those opportunities, there's nobody works in my business who isn't about making a difference. Like any business, we can have different ideas about how we might do that. And it's much more than a business because it's all about communities. And we are a charity, which people often forget as well.
Yes, you do, yeah.
We've got all the challenges that come with being a charity. We've kind of been a victim of our own success to some extent because we were getting really good at other activities, our trade and our retail. But of course, as soon as lockdown happened, that stopped. So that in lots of ways has now increased the pressure. I mean, that's why I'm really excited about the Advantage opening as well.
I can't wait to go down there.
Yeah, so it's all about the competitive advantage that, it's very much about Adam Smith. We quite like the invisible hand, but we couldn't work out how to do some kind of logo because we're doing it all ourselves, obviously.
Yeah.
How to do some kind of logo that didn't look a bit like it was out of a horror film. So we've gone with
the thing coming towards you.
Yeah. But no, it's great. It's really exciting, actually. I was down there just at the end of last week, and everybody's dead up for it. And I think it's a really good, apart from the fact I think it's just going to be a brilliant thing for the community and really, again, helping to mark coming out of lockdown. I think it's amazing because of the partnerships, like working with
Kangas, brilliant.
And hopefully other businesses as it goes on, helping to facilitate it, particularly for smaller businesses like that, where they do amazing stuff, but the bricks and mortar that they own or rent isn't suitable for a socially distanced experience of whatever it is. Let's work together, So I think that's really exciting as well. But I also think it's good evidence of the fact that we can really innovate and pivot as a business. We are a business and we're a charity. A business that we're in is communities and culture. That's the best way to think about it. Nothing compromises anything else. But we need to do the things that allow us to keep doing the things that we love and everybody else values. I guess that's the challenge of this organisation in a nutshell, really.
About your role, it's funny, I'm not seeing it as a role, I'm seeing it as a passion for you.
Oh yeah, it's a vocation. Oh, without a doubt, and that's why it's such a big gift. That's right. I mean, I applied for the role of chief executive, and I got an awful lot more than that. I got my dream, really. Yeah. And even when things get really tough, and they have been really tough, it's still what I want to be doing and where I want to be doing it. And with all of the people that we work with, we deliver for and through, we definitely don't stand in isolation as an organisation through our connections to communities, but also we're just really good at partnership. We like it. We're good at it. We're good at making things happen. People like to work with us because we're straight up. We are what it says on the tin. We all of our intentions are always good. And like any organisation, we don't get it right all the time. No. Internally or externally, but it's what you do when you don't get it right. And I like to think we're living our truth all the time. If we haven't got it right, we'll be on it. And I think people cut you a bit of slack for that,
Yeah.
And then really celebrate your achievements with you when you do get it right, So
as a history maker, 100 years from now, someone's listening to this recording, perhaps one of your descendants.
For goodness sake.
What would they like them to know about you?
What would I like them to know about me?
Yes.
I'm like everybody else. I just want to feel like, I made a difference in the time that I had here. And so I guess that's what I would want. I would want anybody looking at that, from the other end of the telescope and looking back to think that was the case. and perhaps equally or more importantly, that in doing that, I helped other people do the same.
Thank you, Heather Stuart, for holding the space.
Thank you.